New content today, Radical Edge, Stephen Farber, and I just want to kind of set some ground rules on this because I forgot, as I told you guys, quote, to read chapter 1, that Farber breaks his more down into scenes since it's an allegorical story instead of a chapter. So we're probably going to read about 5 scenes a day. We'll kick off today. You guys may cover these first 5 again tomorrow. I want to let all of you know I won't be here tomorrow. I'll be in an airplane, so I'm relying on you guys to run the content. We'll make a decision at the end of today. That being said, this setup of Mr. Stephen Farber, leadership expert, meeting with the CEO of a new company that Janice recommended him. For those that read last year, you remember Janice. And of course, we get to meet this new antagonist, Cam, in these first 5 scenes. Love to hear from you guys, though. What are your takeaways? And Celeste, I know it's a great read and an easy read. She already announced that she read the whole thing. Let's keep it condensed to this first part. And what do you guys have? Justin, buddy.
So I thought it was very interesting that when he goes to meet the guy at the mortgage company, I can't remember the boss's name. And here's the story. Here's about the challenges of Cam and what a superstar that Cam is. How he opts to spend time shoulder to shoulder and really decide if he can be friends with Cam before he decides if he's going to coach or help Cam. And I thought, man, that's bold and probably super wise way to vet the people that you're in business with, do business with, do things for, because if you like them, it's just going to be that much easier, better, possible. And I'm waiting for the tie-in back to the airport scene with the tie on fire and burn your boss. I haven't gotten to it, but I'm guessing it's in there.
Yeah, can't wait for somebody else to bring that piece in. And let's just stay on this because this is from scene 4, where Farber's talking about the importance of really getting to know people and staying in connection, staying in collaboration. He says proximity, physical nearness, face to face and shoulder to shoulder, Rich. That's the only way to really connect with another human being because that's the only way we really get to know each other. And in this conversation, Rich, the CEO, was saying, hey, I want you to work with this young man I've got, Cam. And as this is happening, Rich is now concerned. Gosh. Okay, Steve, I get it. That's what you're going to do. One question, though. After hanging out with Cam, talking to Cam, getting to know him, what if you don't like him? Does that mean you won't work with him? And I love Steve's response. I wouldn't worry about that. Why? I grinned because I like everybody. Mm-hmm. I like that concept as a leader, as a coach, as a trainer, as a teacher. One of your core loci, if you will, is you've got to like people. By the way, same thing with real estate. You get to choose to like everyone. Now, Celeste, I saw your mic was hot earlier. Come on back in. And Glenna, I see you're up next. Okay. She wants 2 minutes, I think. So, Glenna, you're up.
I was just going to agree with Justin. I like the fact that he wants to get to know somebody before he becomes their coach, their leader. So that was very wise on his part to do that.
You all are coaches of real estate clients, whether you like it or not. You are all leaders of real estate clients, whether you like it or not, or whatever industry. And I don't know, we have lenders in here as well. Every person you have an opportunity to lead. And that's what we're going to be learning throughout this content. Are you ready to go, Celeste, as you are on your walkabout? Well, then who else? What else do you guys have from the first 5 scenes? I see lips moving.
I just appreciate the candor that he has here. That um, even just his comment about, after doing all this time, he still comes home feeling rejected, comes home to kind of an empty house, kind of feeling of regret or discontent, even though he likes his challenges. And I'm sure every one of us feels that way. Like, even a comment would go, some days we're just asking, what's it all worth? And then something happens and you find, you're reminded why it is you love it, why you do it, why people matter. And anyway, so that was just an interesting insight to it, a confirmation. It's like, just let it pass. It's not there to stay. It will be there. You're human. Don't worry about it. Just do it.
Well, I want to take you guys back then a year, as Jeanette brought this into the content, because the story starts, the headline on page 1, scene 1, is a whoop upside the head, W-U-P. And from last year, we remember, and we're going to have some conversations with Smitty coming up, that the whoop is the wake-up pad. The whoop is the place where things happen, you write them down. The whoop is really the place where you journal. We've talked about the importance of journaling, of writing these things down, of taking notes, of being attentive to it, of being present. And I think you're going to see time and time again here within the content where there's these moments like Jeanette brought up of just presence and really paying attention to what's going on. It may not be sticking around, but at least documenting, writing it down, seeing the patterns that show up in your life. Because as we start this chapter, this is one of the patterns that starts up in Steve Farber's life of constantly having these unique interactions, unique relationships, unique experiences that keep propelling him forward. Who else from the content? Jeanette, you're back again. Look at that.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, it just happened yesterday with me on something. And, just some of the things that I minister with at the church. And I thought, how can I do that better? How can I really, is it not boring? Is it, all of those kinds of things. So yeah, like you say, document it and write it down and recognize this too shall pass.
Yeah, what a great one, by the way. This too shall pass. Good, bad, or indifferent. This too shall pass. And I saw you come in, so let's chat. And then Doug, and then we'll re-loop back with Celeste one more time and check in on her.
So I will 100% admit I was late, and I wasn't real sure what chapter 1 was. So I'm gonna take some guesses here, since the chapter is big, but there's the mini chapters. Anyway, I thought this was fabulous. Some things that I just picked out. He says, I've jumbled the made up stuff with the real to the point I'm not even sure where the facts end and the fiction begins. And I think that's fabulous, because that's coming back to life. And, the whole process of our programming leads to I'm not going to try and do the whole thing, Coach. I'm going to let you do. Our programming leads to our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our actions, and our actions lead to our outcome in our programming, right?
Our results.
There we go.
Which comes back as more
programming. Thoughts, feelings, actions, results, programming, thoughts. There we go.
Let's run that cycle, baby.
I know, right? I'm here for it. I thought that was fabulous, because we are all brainwashing ourselves every day. How are you going to brainwash yourself? So I love that. And then he said, how are we going to change the world? And then we have one of the businessmen say, okay, but here's the question I want answered. What exactly does a person like me need to do to make it all happen? You mean we personally have to change the world? And as long as we're asking these deep questions, don't we have a business to run? And what about a personal life? And then Steve says, gosh, I wish I had all the answers. And I was like, man, don't we all? Like, don't we all? And yet people do make change without all of the answers. And that we will never have all of the answers. But the only way we'll ever change ourselves, our business, our personal life, or our world is to step forward without all of the answers, because we will never have them all.
So thank you, Ann, for bringing in this prologue section, because this is a big part of those of us that are driving others to be bigger thinkers. So that's my goal for you guys. In fact, it's so much fun. One of my shorts, I got a hit from YouTube yesterday, hit over 500 views. And it was one on first time ever. I mean, I'm getting some momentum, kind of fun. And it was one on thinking bigger. And so I love that here's Farber using a story, and I suspect it really happened in his life because that's how he writes, in front of a room of middle-aged white guys in Michigan, Grand Rapids, Michigan, asking ultimately, how are we going to change the world? Not asking, how are you going to do your job? Not asking, okay, how are we going to increase the company's bottom line by 20%? Asking, how are we going to change the world? A big why, a big vision, a big man, we got things to do. And everybody in that room came back with realistic responses. Well, really, by how are we going to change the world? You're asking, how am I going to change the world? What's my piece of that, right? And then, okay, how does that work with my business obligations, my life obligations, my family obligations, my personal health obligation? All this story is Ann brought in this programming. And Farber had to realize that, yeah, I wish I had the answers to all those questions too. And the fun part is we're going to explore them over the next 2 weeks. Doug Harrington, your mic's hot and you're up, brother.
Just to comment on what you just said, all those things that those guys asked, even though they're kind of pushing toward the answer of considering the question, they're really excuses as to why they can't do it. Right? It doesn't say that, but that's what they are.
Yeah.
Because life is going to get in the way of greatness. I really, when he's coming back from this conference, I'm glad you brought in the conference, because I think that there's a lot of little pieces in there, like the thing of, he calls everybody in the room Jim. I think that's
Yeah.
I think I could think on that for a little while, but anyway, when he comes back from the conference, and Jeanette kind of hit on this just a little bit, it says, I had the dull ache of regret, or was it discontent, that I used to get after teaching the canned scripted workshops that were the staples of my earlier days in the leadership development business. Don't get me wrong, I love the idea of changing the world as the core business leadership proposition. But I found myself doubting my ability to actually get it done. And I think this is his open door. This is where he's discovering that he's got a gate open. It's an opportunity for life to change. Because now he's looking for something. He's hungry for something. And I think that's a great place to position his main character as we start getting into this.
It's interesting too, because you brought in that all the things that gyms were bringing into the room were excuses. And you said one thing that I definitely want to reframe, Doug, that ties into what Ann was saying. You said that life is going to challenge. You said life is going to get in the way, of getting to your goals, of making those things happen, of changing the world. I want you to change the language to, it's going to challenge it. It's going to challenge your commitment. It's going to challenge your veracity. It's going to challenge your willingness to get uncomfortable. It actually doesn't get in the way. That's part of the story that all these gyms have is, well, these are the justifications why not. Versus, okay, these are challenges we need to figure out. And so I just want to make sure you guys are seeing everything coming up, not as a barrier, a wall. One of my favorites to go back to junior high, it's just our opportunity to look at prepositions. Something I think my old English teacher said, it's something you can do to a hill. So
something you could do to hell.
I think that's what it was, over, under, around, through, all those prepositions versus just saying, okay, there's this hill in the way. What are we going to look at the ways around that? And Nafreetha, the floor is yours, my dear.
I love what you just said, and it kind of like introduced what I was going to say, because I'm listening to the book. My book hasn't come yet. So I usually listen and read and highlight at the same time. However, the thing I wrote down was everything is an opportunity. And that ties into exactly what you said, going back to what Doug said, right? It's an opportunity, and it depends on us to see it as such, not to see it as a hindrance, but as an opportunity, whether it's to help, to grow, to learn, to teach, or whatever it may be. But how can we reprogram our brains, our RAS? How do we make that auto suggestion the question, what is the opportunity in this experience? Right? And I think then that's when we'll actually start to attract, oh, I can do this. Oh, this is why it becomes more apparent. Right? So I was just asking us all to try to see everything as an opportunity. And another thing I jot down, when you guys talk about like changing the world, for me, because since reading the last book, that's how I've been. I used to see myself and say, okay, you're here for a purpose. However, I used to could only see it like, well, you're here to help your family, right? But what I see, even asking this, it's bigger than that, right? It's not just your family. It's not just your team. It's not just your job or your brokerage. It's not just your city or your state. It really is the world. And I've been asking myself that since reading the last book, right? Even going back to Coach Russ, how you specifically know your mission, right? And I mentioned that before. What is your mission? And so I found myself tweaking my mission statement again, but I love it because I'm getting more and more specific with my niche. And not only that, but with the passion that lies within my soul that will make it so much more meaningful in the experience, right? So I was kind of feeling a little wacky, asking myself, like, what are you going to do for the world? And it's so crazy as I'm saying this out my mouth. A few weeks ago, my sister called me and she's like, so I started a life coaching and consulting business a few years ago that I had to put on pause, right? And it's about self-development and growth and pouring into people and being that bridge that I know that I am. But she called me and she's like, what's going on? Well, I don't see, like, she's saying my business name. Well, I don't see you doing anything. I don't hear anything. And I felt kind of like she was like attacking me in a way. I was like, wait a minute. And she's just like, no, she's like, the world needs to hear your voice. She's like, I'm always in this analysis paralysis thing, right? Wanting it to look away. And I've been actually diving deeper, and my aunt has introduced me to read a book, The Child Within, because I'm trying to dive deeper into why am I getting stuck in analysis paralysis. Something went on, like we was talking about in the other book, that I need to dive into. But anyway, I can keep going. But like, we all have a gift, and that gift is bigger than what we think it is. So for me now, I'm challenging myself. How do I use that gift to serve the world? And how do I use that gift to see an opportunity in every experience that I face? And the last thing I'll leave would be make use of the wait. So when he was in the airport, instead of him sitting, he said, I'm going to explore. He went on a walk to keep his blood pumping, to keep his mind like going. So for me, like even in this transition that I'm in, right? How do we make use of the wait? And I'll be quiet and let somebody else speak.
Well, I want to have some fun with you, Nafreetha, because it actually came up in another room today too. This procrastination, which some people call analysis paralysis, which I want to tie back to last week with Don. So we had Don Rogers in the room on Friday, and one of his quotes that I wrote down: there is no such thing as, quote, I have a hard time making a decision, end quote. You've just made a decision to do nothing at that moment.
Absolutely.
I'm challenging you guys to just make decisions, get moving fast, push forward. And again, don't be afraid of the failure. Instead, embrace it. Fail often, fail fast, and fail forward, and magic will happen. Jeanette, your mic's hot. What do you got?
Just as Nafritha was saying, and how do we change our mindset? How do we change that? And our words are so, the challenges we need to figure out that you had said, or we have to figure out. We get to figure out. Now we have a mindset of exploring and anticipation. It's been so changing for me.
Well, when you're asking about changing mindset, being in this room is helping all of us continue to sharpen that sword and improve, rather than change. I'm going to say improve our mindset, get more and more towards opportunity, which also means getting away from people that are dragging you down.
Yeah.
As well as getting in places where people are propelling you, you've got to work on getting those other voices that are giving you all the why nots, that are holding you back, that are delaying your decisions, and softening or quieting those voices. So just keep that in mind, that the environment matters. We know from quantum physics that the environment controls the particle. So though you may have been told, oh, you got to do it yourself, you got to figure it out, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you're on you. That's not what's really happening energetically. So make sure we're plugging into the right places and we're quieting those voices that aren't serving us. Justin, brother.
Is you're talking about Don saying last week with making decisions, and not making a decision is making a decision. I think that's brilliant. I think in this moment, I feel like we're using that as fuel or leverage to not procrastinate and make decisions. And then I'm also reminded of the quadrant. It's urgent or not urgent. It's important or not important. And I think in life, like, there's a lot of external pressure or encouragement to make decisions about things that are urgent. And I think to mindfully not react to those is like a good instance of utilizing procrastination to our benefit, like deciding to sit something out because it's urgent, it's not important.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that in. And rather than addressing it in the moment, I'm going to diagram it out real fast. So in the meantime, what else do you guys have from the content while I diagram that out and then bring that piece back in the room, since Justin started it?
I don't know if
the floor is yours.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if this is correct or not, but I noticed that this attitude of the gyms seems to be very similar to the attitude of the Cam character. He's got this attitude like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do anything. And the best part about this book is, since it was such a fast read, I have more insight, I guess, than most of you guys as to what comes from all this. And I just love this idea that Steve went into a meeting where he's meeting Cam the first time with this idea like, oh, I can work with anybody. And Cam kind of threw him a whole bunch of whatever. And he's very clearly aware. He is now knowing he cannot always work with everybody. And the great part about this is how the story unfolds. I think what it made me think of is when I think of when you work with someone and they're very clear, they believe they know more than you do. And I don't want to make this assumption that everyone is that way, but sometimes there are people that are really what I call difficult. Not sure, how else to put it. But when you think about it, why are they difficult? That would be my thought. How do you understand where they're coming from unless you start asking more questions? And Russ has been, 100%. You should not be talking. You should not be telling. You should be asking more questions. And with my awareness of that, I realized that the only way you get to know where someone's coming from is to ask more questions. So these gyms had an attitude of, I got to work, I got to do my thing. And in reality, Steve realized, he's dealing with guys that they're not seeing the bigger picture. And he's trying to figure out, how do I get through to them? And so what's fun is to see that same personality type is in Cam. And how is he going to figure this one out?
So I love that you're through it, Celeste, which means tomorrow I'm going to be leaning on you hard, since I will be in an airplane and not with you guys tomorrow. And I'm looking for all of you to get reading. As we wrap up the content for today, though, I want to make sure we hit, since Justin brought it in the room, these two variables that are coming at us with everything that comes at us. Everything in our world that, quote, we have to do when we fall from who we're being to who we're doing. There is an urgency and there is an importance. And they are separate and distinct. And the 4 quadrants he's talking about, I have diagrams. So number 1 is what is not urgent and not important. One of my personal favorites when I'm talking to people about their life and coaching them, and they talk about cleaning the house or doing the laundry, the stuff they're doing instead of their work, that really usually falls in the non-urgent, not important. They create urgency around it, yet that doesn't have to be done, especially during your workday. So quadrant 2 now is the urgent, yet not important. Here's where that usually comes from. Other people. It's urgent to them, and they try and throw that urgency on you. Though it's not important for you getting to your goals. Quadrant number 3. Not urgent, yet important. This is a fun one, because this one, guys, how many of you have a vision, a plan of something you wish to create around your real estate business, like a marketing funnel, for example? It's important. We've got to drive leads, yet it's not urgent because there's not a due date. There's lots of stuff in your life maybe that you don't even know is important. Let's take eating healthy and getting exercise. We all know it's important, yet a lot of us don't apply an urgency to it. And it stays in that category of 3. And finally, number 4 is urgent and important. Lead gen sits in that box as an example. Here's the fun part of this chart. Where should you be living your life? I'm going to say, Celeste, not just 4, but on the right side. You should be scheduling. That's why we talk about the calendar and the importance of following the calendar model that we teach, because that's how you get the non-urgent, important stuff done. You time block out that stuff that's truly important. In fact, you maybe put it in the morning so it actually gets done. And then everything else, you wait till the afternoon. So when other urgent stuff comes up, hey, you have a time block schedule to deal with it in the afternoon. And you still get to analyze, is it truly important? Because if it's urgent but not important, maybe you should let go of that urgency. Can't wait to do a deeper dive on that, Justin. Thank you for bringing it in so I can at least lay out the skeleton of it for everybody. Tomorrow, guys, I won't be here. I want you to read 5 more scenes. Let's get through scene 10. That'll be about another 15 pages. And start seeing more of how Cam shows up. You're going to get to meet Smitty again. For those that were here a year ago for Radical Leap, you got to spend some time with him as well. And William Maritime, who is also discussed now in the content. Can't wait. It is Monday, guys. So for those that are into building know that we have a leaders group with Don Hobbs from 2 to 4 Central. And again, this room from 2 to 5 is where the important and urgent of conversations happens. You guys should be here from 2 to 5 Central if you are looking to actually accelerate 2025. So even if you're just here muted, but people are seeing your face and doing the work, it makes all the difference in the world because we're doing it together. I'm going to jump into my coaching room. We will see you guys later today. Have an amazing day.